Hi, my name is Kara Smith, Senior Director of Channel Enablement here at VIOLIN Systems. With me today is our Regional Channel Director, Ted Turkington. Ted, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Kara. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. Ted, let's jump into it. We've got a great topic for today. We've polled all of our partners. We've polled our internal teams. The transition to remote working has made us hyper aware of 3 business practices that, when done well, will help organizations not just survive, but thrive during COVID. The first best practice is around revenue driving applications. Ted, walk us through your suggestions here.
Sure. Thanks, Kara. So first of all, customers need to go through and get a list of their critical applications, through a business impact analysis, similar to what they do for disaster recovery planning. It's not so much that they need to determine what applications they need, but it's really more important to know what stuff they don't need. Every business manager thinks that their applications and their piece of the business is most important, when in reality there's some things that maybe day one or even the first week aren't necessarily what they need to keep the business running.
That makes a lot of sense. Number 2 is productivity. How can organizations help ensure productivity during this time?
That's another great question. So, most organizations have virtualized their infrastructure to try to simplify management, but also just to make it easier to move workloads around, especially in times like this where they may need to move to a separate data center. And the biggest thing is they got to test those plans. They got to make sure that, when they do have to move data around, that not only are the applications available, but the data is available at that secondary site as well. And that brings me to the second piece of that, which is, if they got all flash in the primary data center, well, they can't have their 10-year-old, old array sitting at the secondary site and expect to have the same user experience. And then last but not least, they've got to have a plan to be able to get back to what was normal before. A lot of companies create a one-way street, but it creates a lot of risk if they don't have a plan to get back to where they were in the first place.
Oh, that's such good insights. So last but certainly not least, and very important in today's age and going forward, tell us about security.
Well, data security is always on every IT professional's mind. You can't go a day without seeing something about a breach or a ransomware attack on some company. So with everybody working at home, that just increases the attack surface exponentially. So whether you got the latest VPN or firewall, at the corporate office, now somebody's working at home on their own Wi-Fi network. They may be on their own computer, and they're accessing those same critical applications. So the risk of ransomware and breaches goes up exponentially. So the first line of defense has always been, and also the last line is a good backup. You got to have a good backup. You also have to test those plans, as well as have some type of snapshot or replication technology. And then it's always a good idea to have a separate copy off network somewhere. And then the other piece of this is, it's the end user who's really the biggest risk to any organization. So some type of 2-factor authentication is also a good idea, just so that if somebody does get a hold of the user's credentials, they don't have that token, they can't get at the data. So it may be cumbersome for the users, but at the end of the day, it can save that company from being the next front page story, even in these days of pandemic.
Absolutely. Ted, thanks so much for your insights here. For those of you that are watching today, these were the top 3 business practices to thrive during COVID. For questions around these insights and more, please email us at the address in the post above. Thanks, and see you next time.
Thanks, Kara.